When you think about these massive infrastructure projects, brand new railways, huge shipping ports, power grids that cross entire continents, we always picture the concrete and the steel, right? But what if the most important part of building them, the part that actually unlocks billions of dollars, is something you can't see at all? Well, that's exactly what we're going to dig into.
We all see these incredible feats of engineering, like this train zipping through a city. But here's the thing. Behind every single one of these projects, there's a foundation of laws, policies, and regulations. And getting that foundation right, it's the key to absolutely everything.
Okay, so to really get why that invisible work is so crucial, we've got to first wrap our heads around the sheer scale of the challenge we're facing globally.
By the year 2040, the world is facing an estimated shortfall in infrastructure funding of $15 trillion. It's a number so big it's hard to even comprehend. That's the gap between what the world desperately needs to build and what it can actually afford.
And here's the bottom line. Governments just don't have that kind of money. They can't close that gap by themselves. As Melinda Bohannon puts it here, the only way this works is by bringing in private investment. The money has to come from somewhere else.
So this leads to a really fascinating puzzle. If we know we need all this private money, and there's a ton of it out there, why isn't it flowing where it's needed most? What's the missing piece here? And that's the paradox, isn't it? There's over $1.5 trillion in funds out there specifically for infrastructure projects just waiting to be invested. So why aren't they bridging that massive $15 trillion gap? The money exists, the need definitely exists, so what's the deal? Well, the answer, in one word, is risk. Private capital is, cautious. It avoids places where the rules can change overnight, where the legal system is a question mark, or where the institutions are weak. It needs what the experts call an enabling environment. Basically, a predictable, stable, and transparent climate to invest in. Without that, the money just stays on the sidelines.
And this is where a really unique organization comes into the picture. It's called the Public-Private Infrastructure Advisory Facility, or PPIAF for short. They focus on creating that exact environment with a very specific approach they call working upstream.
So what on earth is upstream? It's all that invisible work we were talking about. It's not about pouring concrete, it's about building that rock-solid foundation of stable policies, fair regulations, and strong institutions that makes a country attractive to investors in the first place.
This whole idea really breaks down into 3 concrete actions. First, PPIAF helps build solid, trustworthy institutions. Then, they work on strengthening local capacity, training the people on the ground to manage these complex projects. And finally, when you do those 2 things, you systematically reduce the risks that were scaring investors away.
And this is where the story gets really incredible. Because when you do this upstream work correctly, the return on that investment is just staggering. It creates this powerful multiplier effect. Get this. Since it started, PPIF has invested about $410 million in grant funding to do this foundational work around the world. Now, that's a lot of money for sure, but in the world of global infrastructure, it's actually a relatively small amount.
Which, of course, begs the question, what kind of a dent can that amount of funding actually make in a $15 trillion problem? $30 billion. That's the amount of private investment that PPIAF's work has directly unlocked. That's the payoff for all that invisible upstream effort.
And this chart just says it all, doesn't it? I mean, look at the tiny little bar representing PPIF's grants, compared to the absolute skyscraper next to it, that is the private capital it mobilized. The leverage is just almost unbelievable. Let's put a number on it. For every $1 that PPIAF invests in fixing that upstream environment, it mobilizes $137 in private capital for actual projects. That is a massive, massive multiplier. So where is this work happening? As you can see, there's a major focus on sub-Saharan Africa that gets over 1/3 of the attention. This really highlights that the work is targeted at the regions with some of the most critical infrastructure needs out there. And it's not just about the money either. This work is guided by some really crucial development goals. Every single project is designed to consider gender impacts. 90% of them have climate benefits. It's about building smarter, more inclusive, and more sustainable infrastructure. But what do all these big numbers and policies actually look like on the ground for real people? To see that, let's zoom in on a specific example that really brings this whole thing to life.
So the goal here was incredibly ambitious. Create a shared power pool connecting 4 countries in West Africa. The idea was that they could all share electricity, which would lower costs and improve reliability for millions and millions of people.
The before picture is one of daily struggle. We're talking frequent blackouts, unreliable grids, and some of the highest energy costs in the entire world. The after, well, is transformational. PPIAF came in and did that upstream work. They helped create the legal frameworks and the commercial agreements that made a huge, multi-billion-dollar power line investable and ultimately operational.
And this is the result. This isn't abstract anymore. For the first time ever, the capital of Sierra Leone got 24-hour electricity. Power costs plummeted, down 23% in Sierra Leone, 12% in Liberia. People in rural Guinea got access to the grid for the very first time. This one project, built on that foundation of invisible upstream work, directly benefited nearly 3 million people.
So, it really leaves us with this final, powerful thought. We've seen how focusing on that invisible foundation, the policies, the laws, the institutions, can unlock billions for essential infrastructure. So the question is, where else could this upstream thinking be applied to solve some of the world's other massive challenges?